passion and vibes, and through it all there's a glow inside. Let's keep our shine alive.
From the market to the factory floors, from the hillside green to golden shores,
we're reaching heights, our energy that lights the sky. Shine bright, Jamaica. Shine bright, Jamaica. Feel the rhythm, we're on track. Feel it, feel it. Together we rise, together we climb. JPS Jamaica, together we shine.
Shine for the ends, shine with your family, shine with your friends. Light up the streets and make the vibes blend. Yo, JPS, and make the shine never end.
That is being streamed live. Look for the chat box on the side or bottom of the video player. This is where you can type your message. Click inside the chat box and use your keyboard to type out what you want to say. You can type words, use emojis, or even ask questions. Once you've typed your message, press the enter key on your keyboard or click the send button. Your comment will then appear in the chat for everyone watching the live stream to see. If you want to send another comment, just type it in the chat box again and press enter or send. Your new comment will show up below your previous one.
Some political analysts say the uncommitted can win elections or cause one party or the other to lose. Frankly speaking, the uncommitted voters are those people who don't swear by either of the two traditional political parties, JLP or PNP. Frankly speaking, some people speak disparagingly of them, saying the uncommitted don't value the cherished right to vote, and they do not deserve to get any benefits won by the voters. Today, we are talking about the uncommitted voters in Jamaica. Later in the program, we'll have a representative of one of the non-traditional parties who believes the uncommitted are very important to them and in the scheme of politics. But first, we are expecting our commentators Desmond Richards and Winnie Anderson Brown, and we want to welcome them. Before we begin, we also welcome Joshua Black. He's the man behind the graphics. Please remember to share this Frankly Speaking podcast with your friends and family. Please subscribe to the channel. Remember, this podcast is being recorded and will be available on YouTube for viewing at your convenience. We invite you, our viewers, to send us your comments as shown at the top of the program. You may also send by text questions and comments by WhatsApp to 503-9995. That's 876-503-9995. Now, we have with us Dr. Chase Neal. He's the Vice President of the United Independence Congress, UIC, and a Minister of Religion. Dr. Chase, thank you. Welcome. We are expecting to be joined by our two guests this week. I'm sorry. I just lost it. Our two guests this week are Peter Espew and Clyde Williams, attorney. We expect them to join us shortly. Now, Dr. Neal.
Yes.
Please tell us briefly what's your concept of the uncommitted.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure being here, Sir McKnight and other panelists. All right, so we have a majority of eligible Jamaican voters who are unsatisfied, they're disturbed, they're disillusioned with what politics has become in Jamaica. We see the non-performance or the non-delivery of services in such a way to make people confident in our system, in our governance system, and in the political process. And as a result, the viewpoint of many of our citizens is it does not make sense to vote. So whether voting JLP or PNP, even voting UIC is seen as something that is nonsensical, or it does not in any way affect or improve the life of the daily Jamaican. So, and this is from over the years. We see rise in the murder rate. We see where the dollar is inflating and robbing citizens of their purchasing power. Governments are supposed to keep us safe. Governments are supposed to create an environment in which we can prosper as citizens. And if the government is failing to do that, then it, in the mind of the regular citizen, it makes no sense to participate in the process to elect.
So you are going over after the negatives, people who feel negatively about Jamaica.
Yeah.
That's who you are going after.
Not necessarily negative about Jamaica, because these same persons who feel negatively toward the political process feel positively about Jamaica in other areas. For example, when we have Olympics, right, we see people coming out in the Joes to celebrate Jamaica. During cultural and historical celebrations, you see people turn out, like, for example, the Independence Gala. So it's not that people are disillusioned with Jamaica or they feel negatively about Jamaica. People feel negatively about our governance structure and our political process.
But the truth, though, is that, Dr. Neil, is that the UIC and other independent parties, but you're not the only one outside of non-traditionals. You're not getting any traction. People not talking about you, people not seeing you, and people don't even believe that you're going to contest the next election.
All right, so there are reasons for that. The thing is, the UIC is a movement for the people. It's built by the people, it's funded by the people.
But are you built by the people, funded by the people, and we're not seeing you on the road? I mean, those
So,
are...
yes, so I'm getting to that. Now, what obtains is that the two major parties, which everybody is used to, is funded by big pocket benefactors. We have the private sector organizations that contribute to the campaign, contribute to the media presence. So these parties are seen, these are what people see. Now, the UIC does not benefit from the same funding, it does not benefit from the same advertisement. It is people who believe in owning a movement for themselves, not a movement owned by private backers that are putting their $2,000 every month and so forth, or then $10 and so forth every month to get this out into the public space as possible. What we have to do is take advantage of the means at our disposal, social media and face
Yeah,
network.
but tell me what, okay, you're telling me what you're going to do now, yeah?
What we have been doing.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so what we are doing, in light of the fact that we don't get the same amount of media coverage, nor the same amount of funding to make it possible to be in this personal space of the voters, as obtained for the JPNP, what we have been doing and what we continue to improve upon is personal in the space spreading of the word, and also through social media. So these are the means at our disposal. The people not hearing us because we don't get the coverage for the people to see us as they see the others. So that's one. Another thing is that this movement is purely voluntary, and we know the situation in Jamaica. We have artists say if you don't make money, it don't make sense. So it is a big ask for looking at the realities of Jamaica, for people to volunteer their time to make Jamaica better and not get any immediate financial compensation out of it. So if we understand these realities, we understand why it is that people may not hear about the UIC as much
All
as
right,
if
just before we're joined by our guest this week, Peter Espew. We have him. Desmond Richards is with us. Winnie Anderson Brown is also with us, but you're not seeing her at the moment. But welcome, Peter. We're coming back to you in a very, very short while. I just trying to get
Sure.
Mr. Neil to tell us whether he believes that the uncommitted are going to be moving and any number of the uncommitted are going to be moving in your direction. You have a forecast, Mr. Neil, as to what number of votes your party will attract this next coming election?
I am not able to speak to specifics of what number, generally speaking, but in Western St. Mary, we're seeing a shift in certain.
Sorry, say that again. I missed that.
I'm saying I'm not able to put a prediction of generally of where we have candidates of how much we're going to shift the votes, but
Yeah.
I can speak generally that in Western St. Mary, for the person that you have quoted, there is a greater understanding and seemingly a shift towards giving the UIC a chance.
All right. Okay. All right. Let me bring in Peter Espew. Peter, welcome. Peter Espew is, as I mentioned, a man of many parts, but many people know him as an environmentalist or an environmental activist or proponent of environment. And he's also a columnist with the Greener for many years, one of the longest standing. Peter, can you give us your definition of the uncommitted?
Hi, Franklin. Good afternoon, everyone else. A definition of uncommitted. There are people who don't vote in an election, which means that before the election they are called uncommitted, but then after the election they say that only 30% voted and 70% didn't vote. So does that mean that the 70% who didn't vote were uncommitted, or as some people call them apathetic? They are disinterested in voting. So
what do you call them, Peter? Peter, what do you call them?
But I'm just saying, I'm trying to make a distinction between people who are not going to vote.
Yeah.
Which means you can't call them uncommitted. If they're not intending to vote, then they are not uncommitted. They have dropped out of the system.
Yeah.
And then there are people who intend to vote and have decided they're going to vote for the PNP. There are those who are committed to vote and have decided they're going to vote for the JLP. And there are those who have committed to vote but are undecided as to who they intend to vote for. So it is that last
those
group.
are the ones you call the uncommitted.
So those are the ones that I will call the uncommitted. The rest of them don't intend to vote.
Okay.
Because they say
I pick up, Peter, that you don't like them. You don't like those. But let me
please
don't
do that.
Let me just bring in Clyde Williams.
They may be the most honest of the
Before you go any further,
because
Franklin, before you go any further, there's a question. Yes, there's a comment that I think we should pay attention to. Marshall White says, why do third parties repeatedly and consistently play the victim role? It has long been established that Jamaica is a two-party democracy.
All right.
I suppose the word sorry, let me do that again. Why do third parties repeatedly and consistently play the victim role when it has long been established that Jamaica is a two-party democracy? That's a question we have from Marshall White.
Thank you. And we bring in counsel, we bring in attorney and commentator and a man who had more than a little to do with a third party, Clyde Williams. Clyde, thank you for joining us. Sorry, I'm a bit late, but thank you, Clyde.
Yeah,
Clyde,
yeah,
what to use an uncommitted? What make up a pool of uncommitted?
those are persons, in my opinion. Well, before I answer, frankly, I don't think it's a relevant question, but I still answer it in terms of voting and so on. I don't think it's relevant, but from my understanding of the uncommitted and based on how the polling organization have categorized those persons, are persons who have not determined if they are going to vote for PNP or JLP. So those are persons who want to vote but have not committed themselves to vote either PNP or the JLP. So that's my understanding of the uncommitted voters. Want to
That's
vote?
the same thing I'm saying.
Yes.
Okay.
Which would be different from persons who are alienated, don't have an interest at all in
Same
voting.
thing I'm saying. Thank you,
Do
brother.
not intend to vote. Can't bother vote, a waste of time. Think that.
Yeah. And for you, client, sorry, I'm sorry. For you,
Yeah,
client, these don't intend to vote. They have given up on the JLP and the PNP. What's your view of those?
Well, I look at it a little differently. I look at it from a more positive framework. In other words, those persons are indicating that it is the systemic failures and the corruption and the culture of politics in Jamaica that they are rejecting. So I don't really condemn those persons, nor do I say that they should get up and vote, because they're saying there is nothing at all that they see that they can cast a vote in favor of. They have lived for 40 years, for 50 years, for 30 years, and they haven't seen anything that politics would have contributed to the development of their community, the development of the country itself. So they have decided to hop out. So those persons are pointing towards the need for change. I want to add very quickly that the last 3 elections, the winning party got less than 30% of the entire voting population. Those who are new. In other words, they're governing with less than 3 out of 10 persons who are enumerated, who are on the electoral list. Only 3. The last this JLP government got about little under 22%, they're about 22-23% of those who are enumerated. In other words, the data suggests that the system has crashed. You can't have a liberal democracy when most persons are not interested in voting. You've got to have a look at that. So it lacks legitimacy.
Okay.
That's my take on those persons.
That's
Thank
what
you.
I was trying to say.
Peter, you'd like to respond to that? I see you nodding.
I'm really responding to you, Franklin, because you were trying to put words into my mouth to say that I don't like those people who have decided not to vote. And I repudiate that. I was trying to say before you interrupted me that those people who decline to vote at all may be the most honest, decent, and respectable Jamaicans of all. Because those who decide to vote for the Orange or the Green Party are voting for garrisons, they're voting for gunmen, they're voting for corruption, they're voting for parties that distribute scarce benefits and spoils. And maybe they have sensitive consciences and can't do that.
Oh. Now, Peter, can you respond to the question I asked earlier? Suggested earlier that we have a 2-party democracy, and that's it. We have a 2-party democracy, and we should be just satisfied with that. And third parties like Mr. Neil and other ask him to come in shouldn't bother complaining.
Relic.
Who
Peter,
decided not to have a 2-party democracy? You decided that, Franklin?
It's a colonial
No,
relic.
one of our viewers was asking that question.
Well, I think the question is based on a false assumption. Nobody has decided that Jamaica is a 2-party democracy. When you observe that only 2 parties have been able to organize themselves amongst the electorate at grassroots level. Only 2 parties have been able to garner enough support from the private sector to be able to print T-shirts and armbands and caps and give out $5,000 for people to vote for them.
10 and 20 as well.
I'm sorry, I stand corrected.
Allegations, council. Allegations, council. Allegations. people.
No. Those are not allegations, no. The giving away of money on election day is not allegation.
Big politicians
It's a criminal
walk around
offense.
with bags with wads of cash. I want to come in a little on what Peter says. Peter, I largely agree in principle with what you're saying. What I would say is that the constitutional arrangements have pushed Jamaica to a two-party system. So it's the constitutional arrangements and the legacy of colonialism that has pushed us into a two-party system. So for instance, the Constitution speaks of the leader of the opposition, who is an executive office in the constitutional arrangement. The Constitution has a first past the post system, which means all those organizations, the two parties that started out at the beginning of this colonial relic and its formation, that would have been in the 1944 onwards, that those persons have a distinct advantage historically, having established groupings, having established connections with the private sector in the country, having established connections, historically with gunmen as enforcers for election day activities and so forth and so on. So historically, and the constitutional arrangements have pushed us in that direction. All we need to do is shift the constitutional arrangements to allow for, in practice, the emergence of a third party. A third party won't emerge in Jamaica.
You want to fix the system to encourage a
No,
third
but
party.
Let me just finish my sentence.
I want Desmond, before you go in, I want to ask him, you want to fix the system to encourage a third party. That's what you want to do, Clyde.
Absolutely. Proportional representation, not first past the post, would be equity, would be an equitable determination for third parties to then. And the 5% of the vote, 5% of the popular vote, you have a say in the parliament. So I would say,
I'm saying that Franklin's people have fixed the system so that only two parties can
that's
survive.
the point. It's constitutional.
Why are you fixing the system, Franklin? You must fix a system like that too.
Yes. It's corrupt.
This man was asking a question and I jumped in because I didn't want to get.
I'm sorry.
No, but what I would say is that when we look around, or let us call them Western democratic countries, what I see is a dominance of two-party system of government.
Not anymore.
All over.
Not anymore. Germany, multi-parties. United Kingdom, multi-parties. Not anymore.
I said, hold a second, Clyde. I am repeating the point. I said, when you look around, there is a dominance because in most of the countries, what you have is a two-party system of government, right? I see, for example, there are countries where, let us look, today is election day in Suriname. 14 parties are contesting the election. Yes. And when I look, I see two major parties that are going to emerge, from which the winners are going to emerge from. So you have a situation where multiple parties are contesting the elections, but the system as it exists is that the two-party system. Look at the United States. When a third party has won, apart from the Democrat or the Republicans.
Yes.
Right.
But Desmond,
yes.
Desmond, there is something that I think you are leaving out in terms of the arrangements. Now is a first past the post system. First past the post system we run. So in that kind of system, and given the constitutional bias towards the two-party setup that come from the United Kingdom, I want us to appreciate this. That the fact that the world has a majority of two-party states is a large consequence of the United Kingdom having colonized a chunk of the world. That's why we have these two-party systems. Because
I agree with you.
It and they modeled us off their Westminster system, two parties. So that's the reason why we have it. If we tomorrow make Jamaica have proportional representation, mixed system, first past the post, with proportional representation, you would be surprised that in 10 years, in 2 election cycles, we will have other voices in the parliament because we they need only get 5%.
Agree with
5%.
I am inclined. I am inclined.
Yes,
I am inclined to. I am inclined to agree with that point. You know.
Agree with you.
Yeah. I have the floor now, sir.
Mr. Neil, you would favor that system, wouldn't you?
No, we have a different system in mind. But before I go there, I'd like to, clear up this idea of Jamaica being under two-party democracy, and I don't want to pose
That's a fact right now. Neil,
right.
That's a fact right now. You have to start with what the facts are.
Let me talk, please. So,
Does not
if we
specify one party.
do I have the floor?
The existence of parties is not mentioned in the Constitution.
Do I have the floor?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Neil. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Neil.
So now we have two parties that their campaigns are funded largely by an entity that is not political, it's not representative. We have the private sector's organizations who are funding two major parties, as Reverend Dispute was explaining earlier. So the campaign slogans, the shirts, all of that is funded by the private sector. Now, what is gained after that? After one party wins, after these parties get all this funding, we know what follows after. We know, whether we want to say allegedly or not, that the private sectors have a hand in choosing the candidates. We have seen over the years where delegates
I'm not going to stay here with that fiction.
that is not so.
That is not so.
Give him 30 seconds more. Let him finish.
Respectful, please.
But
Finish
the
his
fiction
point
is
and
what
then
they
you
can't
respond.
deal with. It's a fiction. They don't choose the people.
Just finish the point, Mr.
Thank you very much. I'm supposed to finish the point. So it makes no sense to the point is made.
Fund the parties. They fund the party.
Come on, gentlemen. I'm making a point here. We can
go on and make your point, sir.
All right. So the private sector organizations who are the benefactors of both parties, and I know there are persons listening who can corroborate what I'm saying. They do have a hand in choosing candidates, even when the delegates.
That's not true, man.
No, man, what they don't do that.
That's one. That's
All right,
one.
go from that point because we want to move on. Yeah.
So the policies that are made by the parliament also have to favor the benefactors. That's 2. 3, the private sector organizations also put forward their voice in who gets chosen as ministers of government.
As what?
Well,
As
Mr. Neil, I don't know where you get those points from. Mr. Neil, no, hold on a minute. Hold on, Mr. Neil. We're having a discussion here, and I was asking you, what is your party's position to end this dominance of the two political parties? You can help us with that.
I'm talking about the supposed dominance of two political parties.
But are they dominant? It's not a fact. Don't they win now unless the 63 seats between the two of them right now? That's what I'm asking. So that dominance is clear.
So what I am saying is that no matter whether you vote JLP or PNP, what you are actually voting for is the private sector organizations. There's the illusion that we have.
All right. And so we have to move on. I want to find out from you. What is your party going to be doing this time around?
This time around
to break into evenly.
All right. So the UIC, what we propose to the people, and as I said, we work with what we have through social media and face-to-face. What we propose to the people is, instead of having candidates and political movements that are funded by external actors from the political system, and shows the system and the candidates that you vote for, we fund our own movement. We put forward our own movement that answers to the people. So we
You're
the
giving
people.
me a whole philosophy again. I just want you to help us just understand where you're going right now, and I'm going to leave you and come back to that.
So we speak.
Do you believe that that proportional representation concept that Clyde was doing is what could make it, or simply a different type of structure and goal of a third party?
All right. So
tell us who's going to fund the UIC.
Yes.
Tell us who is going to fund the UIC.
Mr. Neil, we have to break it there, and we're going to Peter's too. And we're going to come back to you, Mr. Neil. We're going to come back to you. Peter, just can you just respond to what I just asked you, and let's move on?
I appreciate the question, Franklin. That is the question that the so-called Constitutional Reform Commission should have asked. Instead of telling us what they are going to reform the Constitution to be, they should have asked us whether we, the Jamaican people, want proportional representation or not. Well, I'm happy that you are more advanced than the Malahoo Ford Committee, Franklin, because you are asking the question that they never asked. And by doing so, you are criticizing them. And I appreciate the fact that you, Franklin, are coming on public radio and criticizing the Constitutional Reform Committee for not even asking the people that question.
Absolutely.
I think that question needs to be properly debated. It is an option, proportional representation. What it might mean is that there are no constituencies anymore. Because if you are going to allocate the seats in Parliament based on proportional representation, then it's not geographical anymore. So there will be no more constituency based representations in Parliament. They will be, as we are hearing, proportional. This is a matter to be discussed and debated, you know. You're asking if I agree with it. What I agree with is that this proposal needs to be debated by the Constitutional Reform Committee and the general public, which has not happened up to now.
Okay, thanks. I want to turn a little bit to the NDM, which, when we were introducing at the start of the program, we said that there's a view that that was the best opportunity in the last 40, 50 years to break the stranglehold of these two political parties. Do you agree with that? And give us a sense of having seen how it played out, why it failed.
A little background. I ran on the NDM ticket in 1997 and served in the officer corps for about 2 years. I was in law school in 1996 when I saw Bruce Golding and D.K. Duncan sharing the same political space. That for me signaled
revolutionary.
Absolutely, and a whole heap of people were involved in it, you know, who were not traditionally involved in either of the two parties. So I got involved and I was excited. The challenge the NDM had was that it was not two things: the constitutional arrangement with the first past the post and the historical entrenchment of a two-party culture up to that point in time. That's one, and so the constitutional arrangement. And the second one was they were not prepared to spend the years building an organization, which is critical to win an election. And I find that United Congress is the same thing. I'm not feeding them on the road, you know, see them in the constituencies. I have never seen anybody from that party canvassing or doing anything. You have to spend time building. I want us to remember that in the initial years of our adult suffrage, the independent candidates were the most dominant candidates, not the party candidates. I want us to remember that at the outset of the 44 suffrage, most of the winners were not in either PMP or JLP. It took a little while before both parties sunk their teeth. In fact, PMP didn't win until 51, 55, I think it was, when PMP first won, though it had been at the forefront of the creation of adult suffrage and so on. So the NDM did provide that opportunity, but without proportional representation, with the first past the post system, and with the historical inequities in the system, it didn't fare well, and the impatience of Golding and the others who wanted power immediately. So the PMP, 1944, push for adult suffrage, did not form the government until 1955. It had to build for more than 11 years before. Bustamante Party was the JLP, was the union that became the party in 1944. Because as you remember, BITU had been formed earlier. So the JLP didn't come together because of any ideological underpinning on any program. It was just to win the election, and all Bustamante did was just to swing over the workers into the JLP, and the JLP won elections before the PMP got a chance at government. So I would say to Mr. Neil that, brethren, you have to go up on the ground. You have to find a basis to build the organization. Now remember, PMP and JLP were built out of labor. That's how they built the thing. NWTUC, NW for the PMP, BITU for the JLP. And what they did was to mobilize around the unions. The unions have now become weak, but in those years, BITU and NW and TUC were some of the biggest organizers for the political parties. And for that reason, they're still in the parliament. Every Senate going to have union people in from both sides. Because
and I can just add a point here that the union movement is the grandfather of the political movement around the Caribbean.
Absolutely. Yeah. 1938, that spawned our political move.
I would love you to respond to the view that neither the two major political parties nor the ones which are there now on the sides like UIC and so forth, they're not advocating fundamental change to the lives of the people in Jamaica. For example, Desmond and I talk all the time about, for example, this matter of land in Jamaica. None of the political parties has decided to take that on frontally. So we still have 1 million people squatting.
Yes.
1 million people squatting. And neither the JLP nor the PNP, forget about the UIC and the rest. Well, I shouldn't say that because the government party, I think, has been talking a little bit.
No, but Franklin,
they're not taking it on. They're not taking on those issues.
No, we don't.
Yeah, but
one of the things, Peter spoke about, and Clyde spoke about changing the existing constitutional system. Well, and do you realize that what is being debated as constitutional reform right now, that both parties, the PNP and the JLP, they support the existing, they are not for change, they are not for changing the existing political system, Yes. For example, they both support the parliament, and they don't want any they want a ceremonial president, they are in support of that,
Yes, both
right?
of them. In fact,
they don't want any radical change.
You remember
and therefore,
you remember how they started this one? They said the two parties agree on everything except one thing. Whether you're going to elect the president jointly or severally. But we agreed before even any discussion was held. The chairman announced that they already had come to agreement on what they want.
And the thing is that throughout the Caribbean, let me just confine my discussion to the British Caribbean, is that you are not going to have this change, this constitutional change to change the system, because the existing politicians around the Caribbean, they are in support of the two-party system. Yes. They are comfortable with the existing form of government. So third parties are dead as far as we are concerned.
And I wanted to bring that to Clyde.
Franklin, I want to address. Franklin, let me just address the point about both parties are center parties. Both of them are centrists. Sometimes I wonder if the PNP is even right of center of the JLP. But both parties are conservative, centrist parties that support trickle down economics. That's their program, trickle down economics, and so on. And the PNP has abandoned anything that they consider to have been left of center. They have abandoned it. The PNP is not even like a Scandinavian social democratic party, which would be good. So we know they're not democratic socialists, and they're not socialist, social democratic like Scandinavian countries. And so they have abandoned it. There are three things that I want them to take on their own. Frankly, you touch one: shelter. Not shelter, sorry, land reform. It's more than shelter. It's about releasing the resources of the country by making sure people have land that is properly titled so they can leverage the land to have some capital to do some business and so on. So that's one, land reform. Two, fundamental education reform. All of our high school youth should be getting an ardent, champion, immaculate type education. And I use Arden as the lead because Arden is a solid school made up of a cross-section of Jamaicans, all ethnic groups, all classes. Champion and Immaculate go have a little bit more uptown people. So Arden for me is like a standard. So but let me use Arden, Champion, Immaculate, that kind of amalgam, that standard. And thirdly, access to finance and capital. If those three things are dealt with, land reform, education, access to finance and capital, because what happens in Jamaica,
Clyde, I can't disagree with you, because Clyde, you have to explain why none of them have taken on those positions.
They're not interested. They are only interested in getting power. Power for the boys.
Then
power for the boys.
Franklin, you don't see. You are living in Jamaica for since independence. You don't see why. It's the ruling classes that dominate both parties.
Absolutely.
That is simple.
Mr.
And they are not going to.
Says it's the PSOJ.
They are not going.
When you see some questions coming in, are you there? Are you able to take the question first, Winnie?
There are several comments. Marshall White has quite a few things to say. And she insists that Jamaica is a two-party democracy. This is a fact, says Marshall White. She has quite a few comments. She has been, yes. Owen Richards says democracies should be able to accommodate as many parties the nationals choose to establish. And Owen Richards, yes, I just read that. Yes, Owen Richards says, I like what Clyde is saying about land reform.
Well, all of us would like what he's saying. Many of us say, but my problem, I can't understand, Peter, excuse what explained to me. Why has none of the parties taken it up, Peter, in a serious way? Why?
Let me answer this.
Can I speak about what was being land reform?
Yes, sir. But I'd love Peter to try and answer for me.
Well, I will simply continue on the same logic. The people that fund the two parties, they are the people who decide the lines that the parties take. And so the private sector that funds the PNP and the JLP don't want a third party. They don't want the constitution to be changed to allow more power for the people, and therefore the two parties cannot vary from the line that their funders tell them to put forward. Simple argument.
Okay, all right. Clyde said you were attempting an answer.
Yes, but I think it's important to clarify that I think it's important to clarify that it is not the PSOJ as an entity. It is private sector.
PSOJ.
Yes. So that's why I want to say, Neil, it's not the PSOJ. That's an umbrella organization. It is the private sector. In other words, private financing of political parties, and we don't know who financed it. And when man spend their money, man want returns on their money.
Man want their money to be secret. Their donation to be secret.
I don't know if many of us know this. A bag full of cash, man, walk up. People don't sign checks for election contribution. It's a bag full of cash. That's how money running the thing. Nobody gets a check anywhere. No paper trail. Bag full of cash. Pick up, And
The
if you're
bank
honest enough,
declare
you
the
give it
banks
over.
the banks donated 100 million in the last election,
But no
and
paper trail.
But let me
one of
ask
the
you,
reasons
how
one
the
of,
accounting and auditing system allow that? Many of
It
these
is it is
companies
a
are
it is a
listed on the
it
stock
is a
exchange.
it is a
How
corrupt
is it
system.
that companies can give millions of dollars to politics and it doesn't show on their annual balance sheet?
At all. It's
Obviously,
corrupt.
the accountants are behind it. The auditors are in collusion. This system is just corrupt from top to bottom, as a certain national hero used to say.
Mr. Neil, your chance, your time to tell us briefly.
So all the contributors on this panel have been saying what I have been saying. We do not, based on the background that has been laid, if the persons who have the money are the ones who are funding and calling the shots, we actually do not have a democracy. It looks like one and it masquerades as one, but it is not really a democracy. But I was asked earlier, Mr. McKnight, as to the UIC's proposal as it relates to representation. And Mr. Williams raised the thing about land reform. But the UIC, let me speak to the land reform first. No, we advocate for land ownership by every Jamaican. All the land that is not owned privately by individuals, what we call crown land, we should not even have any crown land. No crown supposed to come into Jamaica's thing. It is the people's land. So what we propose then, that land be used for organic farming. The land that's not used or otherwise for organic farming. I think the Jamaican has a share in that land. Whatever that land produces provides dividend for the people. It's the people's land. Every family must be a property owner. That is our view. And if the land is yours, the state works for the people, so the people are the state. If the land is yours, another thing that comes into play here is that we should not be paying property tax for land that we have already bought and owned for ourselves. It's like we're paying rent, it's not our land. So the UIC stance on property ownership and land reform is that the land belongs to the people. The people own the land and not any crown or any government. The government administers the land there for the people, but it's ours. So as it relates, somebody saying something, but as it relates to the representation.
Yeah, just finish on that point because we need to move on. Just finish on the point there, Mr.
We favor a non-partisan system where, although people may have political parties, the political parties themselves don't play any prominent role in the electoral process. So it is your right to form associations. So in the UIC's proposal for governance, a person who wants to become a candidate becomes a candidate based on his or her merit. So you run as a candidate based on what you have presented as your credentials. So you submit a resume just like any other job. You pass a basic governance test, and then there's a public meeting so people can see like an interview process. Once you pass that now,
Mr. Neil, we're not going to be able to get through the prospectus of the UIC this evening. And I mean I mean in that generosity. We're not going to be able to deal with the philosophy of the party this evening. What we wanted to do, what we wanted to do is to consider how significant what the so-called uncommitted or non-committed might be to your party's efforts of getting a foothold in Jamaica. I'm going to move on and ask all of you to just take a note of this position. Joshua is going to help us on the screen, I think. There was a poll done. There was a poll done for the ECJ about why people didn't vote out and how they voted. Earl Jarrett, the chairman of the ECJ, was speaking at a synod in Montego Bay last year, April. And on the screen there are some of what he found. I'm going to mention them clearly here. The survey done in 2024 for ECJ by Don Anderson showed reasons for people not voting. One, corruption. You tell there is so much corruption in the system. Two, no difference between the two main political parties. Three, none of the two parties was performing effectively. Three, no confidence in them, in either of those parties. I didn't get the numbers for each item or if these are lined up as they were. Parties make too many promises which are unfulfilled. All politicians are the same. Those were the positions they put forward as to why they didn't vote in the previous year. Now, average voter turnout in Jamaica between 1962 and 1980 was 81.5%. Average voter turnout in the election between 1962 and 1980. Between 1989 and 2020, 56%. In that period, the highest was 1989 when there was 78%. I remember 1989 where all that came. In 2020, it went down to 38%. And we know that there were some circumstances including COVID and so forth. What is happening?
Franklin.
In 1962, a large percentage, almost 60% of the registered voters were out there voting by the numbers that we have. And as Clyde William just said earlier, we are down to a position now where governing parties, the party which wins the election, is getting less than 30% of the people on the voters list. Now, I just want each of you gentlemen to get your chance to.
I want to say quickly. I want to get into a little bit of granular detail with the 38% in 2020. That 38% in 2020 was largely contributed by a fallout of 127,000 voters from the PNP. So I want to dive into that. 127,000 people who voted for the PNP in 2016 did not turn out in 2020. The PNP got its lowest vote since 1989. 305,000 people voted for the PNP. Lowest since 1989. 305,000. The PNP is the biggest drag down right now because it offers no difference. It offers nothing unique. It offers nothing radical, nothing revolutionary. It has become a weak version of the Jamaica Labour Party. Centrist, right centrist, trickle-down economics. This is only one man take on the bank so that they in the PNP. One man take on the bank. And I understand why. Two of their big leaders are bankers. Bunting and Goley are bankers. So I know Bunting and Goley to take on the bank.
And Clyde, remember that the banks is a significant contributor to election funding in Jamaica. Remember that.
Absolutely.
The last election they donated 100 million.
And remember now you're going to have banker friends. So me I donate so your friends them join it. So all I'm saying, so as a big part of our malaise right now in the country politically is because
Okay. That's the end of today's show. Thanks to all my listeners and viewers. Thanks to my technical operator, Kevin. And remember, drivers, riders, pedestrians, play it safe on the road. Cut out the speeding and obey the rules. And remember to take care. Try and keep away from the gunmen. Yes, they are on the rampage in the country. So until Wednesday, this is Rebel Radio, and I am Desmond Richards.
Up ink and when me drink and pleaser. Never gonna teaser. Boom bang. You don't know so rubber dub health tonic wine, the finest wine. So all of the man them wanna tune into the wine here, you know. You say if you don't want to go long and strong, you just tune into rubber dub.
Tools, hardware and supplies is owning up the heat this summer with their super saving summer sale. Prices are slashed on everything you need to fix up your home. Beautiful tiles, sleek doors, top quality windows, modern sanitary ware, exclusive flooring and more. At Tools, hardware and supplies, we have you covered for the summer.
So, come visit us at 279 Spanish Town Road, 4 South Camp Road, 8 Red Hills Road,
or online at toolsja.com.
Tools!
The Lion King of Hard Hills.
Oh, Jamaica rise, we're built with fire, passion and vibes, and through it all there's a glow inside. Let's keep our shine alive.
From the market to the factory floors, from the hillside green to golden shores.
We're reaching heights, our energy that lights the sky.